And my biggest takeaway was big fat Bryce Young showing up on Saturday. I mean, big fat Bryce Young weighing in at 204, just blowing the scales away. Everybody who was worried about, 195, 200. Nope. Big fat Bryce Young stepped right on that scale, and at 204, blew everybody away with his incredible weight gain in the few weeks since the Alabama football season is finished.
Did this make your weekend, seeing Bryce Young become an eater, as I would say? I mean, we set the over-under on Friday at, 197.5?
Yeah.
And he shattered it. 204 for Bryce Young.
I had 202 as my final prediction, and then he blew that out of the water with 204. It's nice to welcome another fat ass to the football fandom like Bryce Young. Thanks, big fat Bryce Young.
We're calling him fat?
Yeah, big fat Bryce Young.
5'10", over 200. He's pushing some weight now.
BFBY. I don't even want to know what his BMI is at that weight and that height. Probably considered morbidly obese.
I'm not sure he could have lifted his arms to throw a football. That's why he didn't participate in any of the drills over the weekend.
We didn't want him to get winded being as fat as he was.
No, you couldn't run
Yeah.
because of that extra weight. I'm not sure he could have lifted his arm to even throw one time. So that's why he didn't participate. I mean, my biggest takeaway was all four quarterbacks had winning weekends. Talk about Bryce Young. Yeah, he didn't participate in any of the on-field drills, but the fact that he weighed over 200 pounds, that means he's a winner.
Well over 200 pounds, sir.
Well over 200
Well over
pounds.
200 pounds.
When did around 200 become more than 200?
Yeah,
And that was the report. He was around 200, and then the guy goes out there and he's 204.
I mean, he might as well have been 300 the way he weighed in. I mean,
Yeah.
Big fat Bryce Young.
I don't know if he'd be the number one pick if he was 300 pounds.
Good point.
200, I think we can work with. But the three quarterbacks who did participate in the on-field drills all did a phenomenal job. I think Anthony Richardson was the biggest winner of the weekend. I mean, that dude, forget the word freak. That guy is a monster, okay? No one at his size should be able to move the way that he did over the weekend. A 4.43, a 40.5-inch vertical, a near 11-foot broad jump. I mean, this guy is bigger than Von Miller, and he did all of that stuff over the weekend. The arm looked good. You could see the size. You could see the speed. You could see the explosiveness. This guy needed to show off from a physical standpoint to kind of creep closer and closer to the other three quarterbacks that are projected to go in the first round. He did all of that and then some. I thought Will Levis was very, very impressive throwing the football over the weekend. I thought C.J. Stroud proved why people keep calling him the most accurate quarterback in this class. Yeah, he doesn't have the athleticism that those other two guys have, but, man, his accuracy was fantastic. Smooth, compact delivery. He did a lot of really, really good things, too. So my big takeaway is that all of these quarterbacks showed up and showed out, and I really think, gentlemen, when we get to the first round of the NFL draft at the end of April, all four of these guys are going to go in the top 10. There's going to be some trades involved and some wheeling and dealing to make it happen, but considering just the hype around all four of these dudes right now, I think when it's all said and done, all four of them will have their names called within the first 10 picks.
We had a lot of questions for these guys last week, and for each of the questions that I had about these guys, the Will Levis one was an interview one, so we don't know how well he answered questions about 2022, but he looked really good throwing the football. And then Anthony Richardson, will he wow? Yes. C.J. Stroud, will he stand out? Yes. And then Bryce Young, what's the weight going to be? We found that out as well. Big weekend for all those guys, and I've never felt better about the QB going 1, 2, 3 that I talked about over the past few weeks. I mean, Anthony Richardson with the interviews and the workout. We talked about that athletic testing score last week when we were talking about an Iowa defensive lineman and how it compared favorably to J.J. Watt's athletic testing score. Well, in that same type of athletic testing, Anthony Richardson scored a perfect score. He scored a 10. Like, that's how athletic Anthony Richardson is. He scored a perfect score on an athletic testing scale. A 10 out of 10.
Amazing.
It's incredible. And again, I think, and Paul talked about this today on his show, and really what you saw at the Combine should not have drastically changed a ton of things for you. But it should have given you the idea to go back and take another gander at some of these guys. And I got to imagine that Anthony Richardson is in much more consideration after meeting with some of these teams and doing what he did on the field is worthy of another look, a second look, a third look, however many looks they need to make sure that they're not missing something there with Anthony Richardson. When you put on the games, there's going to be some ugly, but there's obviously some really, really good stuff with Anthony Richardson, and I feel like this weekend, with all three of the guys that participated and with all four, including Bryce Young who got on the scale, all of them warranted all these teams taking another look at the film, to seeing, hey, is what we thought was there, is that there? Are we missing something? Just take that second, third, fourth look, bring other people in the building in so you know that when you're evaluating these guys, when you're putting your grade or whatever on these guys, that you've done all the due diligence. And certainly with the workout that Richardson put together and the throwing that Stroud and Levis had, it makes you want to go back and take another look at those guys.
Your biggest takeaway from the Combine, 713-780-ESPN's the number. You bring up Richardson. I mean, to me, he's the biggest winner out of anyone that actually participated and did all the throwing, or if you're a quarterback, or did all the different drills. I mean, the guy measured in at 6'4", 244 pounds. We had reports that he crushed all his team interviews, and then he had a record broad jump. He had a record vertical jump. And since 2000, there have only been 7 quarterbacks to run a sub-4.5 40-yard dash, and Richardson became the first to do so, weighing 230-plus pounds. So we call it the Underwear Olympics. This man dominated the Underwear Olympics. Does that mean he's now in play for the Houston Texans with the second pick in the draft? I think you have to at least consider it a possibility after what he did. If Caserio's going to make judgments based off of raw athletic scores, which, if you look at his history, that plays a big part in his decision-making so far, he's absolutely in play now with that second pick in the draft.
I'm not sure Richardson's going to be there at 2, fellas. I mean, look, I still think Bryce Young is the favorite to be the number 1 pick in this draft, but I saw a couple of mocks coming out of the Combine that had Richardson going number 1. Maybe that's overreaction to what we just saw. Maybe that's recency bias because this all happened a couple of days ago, but this guy might not even be an option for the Texans, the way he's been skyrocketing up some of these draft boards as of late. And you see why there is so much intrigue surrounding this guy. And look, I said it last week, I'll say it again. Anthony Richardson's never going to be the most accurate passer in the NFL. So if you compare him to C.J. Stroud, and it's like, well, Stroud's way more accurate than that guy. Yeah, he is. He is now and probably always will be more accurate than a guy like Anthony Richardson. But look at Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson's far from the most accurate quarterback in the NFL. That guy was an MVP. That guy's one of the best QBs in football because of all of the other things that he brings to the table. Now, is AR-15 going to need to get better at throwing the ball? There's no doubt. There's no doubt about it. He cannot be a successful NFL quarterback completing 55% of his passes like he did in his one full season as a starter in college. But he never has to be the premier best passer in football because there are so many other things that he does really, really well, which is why, Cody, like you said, guys are going to take, forget just a second look, they're going to take a third, fourth, and fifth look to almost try to find a reason to draft Anthony Richardson. Oh, there's so much there. I can mold this guy. I can work with this. Teams are going to be looking more at him than ever before based on what happened in Indy.
I do wonder if a lot of teams that have Bryce Young 1 may think about Anthony Richardson as their second-best quarterback coming out of this weekend. They go take another look at everything and some of the interviews and being impressed with him and just the sheer athletic force that he showcased at the Combine. I do wonder if he's going to end up as 2 on a lot of people's boards. And then to your point, BK, it just takes one. It just takes one team to make him the top guy on their board, and all of a sudden he's coming off the board a lot earlier than most people expected when this whole process got going. I mean, I'd be close to stunned if the Bears, Texans, and Cardinals pick in that order. Like it seems impossible that will be the first 3 teams to make selections in the 2023 NFL Draft. And now I'm not even sure that 1 and 3 are sticking and picking because it feels like 1's on the board, and it feels like if you want Anthony Richardson or you feel good about Will Levis, you may need to go to 3 because, yeah, there's a team at 5 that's got a quarterback, but they may want a future guy. There's a team at 6 that's got a quarterback, but they may want a future guy. And so Richardson, flying up boards with the incredible weekend. We'll see how the evaluation process for these next few weeks goes. He's obviously got some pro day work that he may get to. So I'm intrigued to see if there's going to be that team that takes that swing. And it may not be till draft night till we know, or if the timeline works out right, we may know that somebody's up at 1 and Richardson's a consideration for him.
This is the 2021 draft on steroids, right? I mean, 2021, you had 5 quarterbacks go in the top 15. You're not going to get a 5th going that high, but I think we all knew Trevor Lawrence was going to be number 1 in that draft, right? That was the tank for Trevor all year long is what everybody talked about. Everybody knew throughout the entirety of the pre-draft process that he was going first overall to Jacksonville. I don't know if we know who's going first. We don't even know what team is picking first, Cody. I agree. I think the Bears are very likely to trade the pick, and I know we'll get to that here more in a minute. But all 4 of these guys could go in any order, really. I mean, I could see all of these guys being number 1 on at least one team's big board right now. That's what we're talking. So it's craziness. We still have, 6-7 weeks before the NFL draft gets here. There's a lot of movement that could still be done, but, man, it is wild. I can't recall a time where all four of these guys at this position felt so close together. That's kind of what we're sensing right now after what took place at the Combine.